Karoline Leavitt had faced tough interviews before. She wasn't new to political debates, nor was she unfamiliar with media bias. But this time, something was different. This wasn't just a heated discussion. This was a trap. She had been invited onto a primetime talk show, supposedly to discuss her latest book on free speech. That was the official reason. But as soon as she stepped onto the set and sat in her chair, she could sense the shift in energy. The hosts exchanged knowing glances, the audience seemed primed, and the air felt charged with something other than intellectual discourse. The first few questions were standard, almost routine. Then, without warning, the lead host leaned forward, his voice dripping with condescension. "Karoline, let's be honest. You didn't get here because of your expertise. You're here because you pander to a certain audience. Isn't that the real reason for your success?" The audience reacted immediately. Gasps, murmurs, a few suppressed laughs. Karoline's face remained composed, but inside she knew what was happening. This wasn't an interview. This was an ambush. She took a breath, steady and measured. She wouldn't lose her cool. That was what they wanted. "I'm here because I wrote a book that resonated with millions. If you disagree, let's debate ideas, not attack motives." The lead host smirked, leaning back slightly in his chair, his eyes scanning the crowd. "Debate? Karoline, let's be real. You're not offering a real debate. You're selling an ideology wrapped in buzzwords." Karoline tilted her head slightly, keeping her expression neutral. "That's an interesting perspective. And yet here we are, discussing my work. If it were just empty buzzwords, you wouldn't feel so compelled to challenge me." The second host chuckled, shaking his head. "Oh, we're compelled, all right. Compelled to call out hypocrisy when we see it. Your book preaches about open dialogue, but you cater to a one-sided narrative." Karoline's eyes locked onto his. "I advocate for open dialogue. But let's be honest, is that what's happening here? Because so far, I haven't been given the chance to finish a full sentence without being interrupted." The audience stirred. The tension in the room was shifting. Then, as the segment was nearing its end, the lead host went for the final blow. "Women like you are the problem. You hide behind free speech, but in reality, you're just pushing a dangerous agenda. And deep down, you know it." The audience fell silent. Even they weren't sure how to react. Karoline clenched her jaw, not out of anger, but out of something deeper, a realization. They weren't attacking her because they believed what they were saying. They were attacking her because they were afraid. She smiled, slow and deliberate. "If defending free speech makes me dangerous, then so be it. But at least I'm not a puppet." The segment ended. The cameras cut. The damage was done. Or so they thought. Within hours, the clip was all over the internet. Twitter, YouTube, every major alternative media outlet. At first, the network tried to control the narrative. They clipped the segment, framed it as just another heated debate, and pushed their usual talking points. But they underestimated one thing. The full, unedited version was already out, and it told a very different story. People weren't just outraged, they were livid. Comment sections exploded with accusations of media bias, double standards, and outright bullying. Even those who weren't fans of Karoline couldn't deny what they had seen. The network hadn't debated her, they had attacked her. Republican politicians chimed in. Conservative commentators dissected the exchange frame by frame. Even some liberal figures, uncomfortable with how far the hosts had gone, admitted it was a bad look. But it didn't stop there. The show's sponsors started getting tagged. Viewers weren't just mad, they were strategic. They flooded advertisers with messages asking why they were backing a platform that openly degraded guests who didn't align with their politics. Some companies tried to ignore it. Others issued generic statements. Then, one of the biggest sponsors pulled out. Their statement was carefully worded, avoiding direct controversy while making it clear they didn't want to be associated with divisive and unprofessional discourse. That was the first domino. The rest fell quickly. Inside the network's headquarters, chaos erupted. Executives demanded explanations. Damage control meetings were held. The show's hosts stayed silent at first, then released a half-hearted statement about spirited debate and differing perspectives. But it was too late. Then rumors surfaced. Karoline wasn't just going to let this slide. She was preparing legal action, not just for defamation, but for targeted harassment, professional harm, and possibly even orchestrated media misconduct. The network had weathered controversies before, but this was different. Emails leaked. Internal messages between producers and staff hinted that the segment had been pre-planned as an exposure piece, not a real interview. One line stood out: make sure she stumbles. Cut her off if she gets too comfortable. That wasn't journalism. That was an ambush. By the next morning, it was official. Karoline Leavitt was suing the network. The network scrambled. Their lawyers called the lawsuit frivolous, a desperate stunt. But behind the scenes, panic was setting in. The lawsuit wasn't just about Karoline anymore. It was about media ethics, about how certain voices were treated on national platforms. The backlash deepened. More advertisers pulled out. Ratings plummeted. Viewers on both sides of the aisle began asking the same question. If they had nothing to hide, why were they scrambling? Then came the biggest bombshell. A former producer came forward, at first anonymously, then publicly. In an exclusive interview, they confirmed what many had suspected. The show had a history of coordinating attacks against guests with opposing views. Producers were instructed to push them into uncomfortable moments, cut them off, mock them subtly, control the edit. And they had emails, memos, and unedited footage to prove it. Suddenly, Karoline's lawsuit wasn't just a case, it was an exposé. And the network? They weren't just fighting Karoline anymore. They were fighting the truth. This story is a reminder that the truth always finds a way to surface. No matter how hard some try to manipulate the narrative, justice prevails. What do you think about Karoline's fight against media bias? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and want more eye-opening content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.